Good morning. My name is Philippe Mouloudj. I am a consultant specialized in the analytics area. And today, what I wanted to do is to go over some of the practice I do personally when I go to some customer side. Specifically, since I am on analytics, one of the work I do is to do end to end from the taking the requirement at customer after interview, for example. I lead them all the way to doing to, for example, the answering their business question or either through a reporting solution, for example. So my what I'm going to apply here is specifically to something I do personally, but I would imagine that other consultants have similar way to go over this process. I also need to mention that you might see some bribe of known methodology that you go through when you do when you go through the process of building a solution and answering an analytic solution for customer. So let's get going. So okay, so let me. So what I'm going to show you really go over 5 different steps. Here, the agenda, as you can see here, we go from before to start because of course you want to make sure that you don't jump right in and right away in it and maybe have the wrong process. All the way to one of the most important phase, of course, which is the storytelling. How do we proceed to that? So what happened before? We define a success. Well, we always want to start to understand what could be a positive outcome. We'll go through some modeling on lineage, which you're probably very familiar with. Knowing that everything we do here is completely agnostic of the technology that is being used. I do use that using SAP products, but I could imagine you could do the same using other products. So that should not be a problem. Yeah, same thing. Then I go over the visualization, being a good part that is pretty important. Finally, as I said, to the most important part, probably one of the most important, which is definitely storytelling. That's what I wanted to go through. This is the way I'm going to start this process. So let's get to the before to start. On the before to start process, what do we do before? So for us, it's very important, as it is for you when you deliver your solution to a different jury, to understand to understand who they are. Are they technical people? Are they? Did they go over? Did they already go over some sort of solution and they were not happy about it? That's why I explained specifically their persona. It's pretty important, you know. What do they really want? Do they really want to answer only the question that has been listed among all the among the 3 main categories that you have, or do they want more? And if they do answer the question, do they want to know how did they answer to it? So that's really what is a goal. In order to it on that's a goal, but the needs. What could be their needs? What would they do with after achieving their goal? What will be the next step? That's what it really would help to understand at least these 2 different notions. The pain point is really something I was mentioning just before. Do you know, based on this article, you might know already where the different orton, where did they got problem before? What is the real problem today they got? Even with the data we understand, can we really answer this question? That's the first part. The second part, which is what could be the best outcome, it's important. So let's say you are able to answer all the questions that we have in this process. You are able to go to answer all the questions and you're really able to solve maybe even the homelessness. In that case, you know, that's how you need to picture it. Let's say, for example, an article is written in the New York Times saying that the university has was able to fix the issue of homelessness. That would be an amazing article, but that will be where you want to. That's one aspect of this process is to start from this. You know? And as I say, and this is something you can discuss all along, all together, in order to find what could be a good article there. You know? So, as I say, we, for example, as I was mentioning, saying resolve homelessness. No family with no family on the street, no kids on the street anymore. So that could be another good outcome that you could imagine. So I don't. If you got it where I'm trying to go now, I'm going to try to go from this process all the way to defining what we need in order to get to it. That's really what I'm trying to do here. So let's go to define success. It's a little of what I was saying before, but now we go to the next level, which is what I call defining the different KPIs, the key performance indicator. Just want to mention, you might know that, but I want to make sure that it's clear. A KPI is not only a measure, it's not a matrix, it's not just a number. It's maybe a result of a key figure. It's something by a number you can tell if it's a positive or if it's good or not. So you need to go over each of your question and find it. Is there a KPI that can summarize this question? That can say, okay, by using these KPIs, we can know if we can answer the question that is listed. Some of the question listed there. Make sure that you do agree. Of course, you need to go through a process to agree within your team about what would be the different KPIs for each of the question. One of the technique we use a lot is we use post-it actually. Post-it note when we are all in a group in the same room, which is usually, if possible, within the current situation, is to sit down, write down the top 3 KPIs that they think that can answer this specific question. You will go over question by question. And then you exchange, you prioritize, and you decide together by a vote which one will be the best type of KPI there. You will put it on a wall or this post-it and have an ID to everyone to consult and see what will be the best KPI. The next thing is after you have defined all these type of KPI, after you agree with all of each other, is how you define success or failure within this KPI. Here under, which is a markup here that we'll talk soon, it gives you an example. You see here we have numbers that are green, it's not in the context of homelessness, but that could be, for example, a number of families receiving a Section 8 housing voucher. I would imagine there would be a threshold. There will be a number that under this specific number that might be bad, or over the specific number that might be good, or that could be a percentage. Among this family, what is the percentage of the families that we find is acceptable that got to this process of being successful? You can decide, yes, we have been successful because 90%, for example, of the family did receive a Section 8 housing voucher. That could be one of the way you can qualify success or failure for a specific KPI. That's one way. So after you have defined for each of the question, you have defined this type of KPI. What we usually do, one of the things we like to do, is to go over a mockup, build a quick mockup. So again, that's not the final solution. It's just an example. Among yourself, you can define this, have an idea about what that could be. So here as an example, for example, and as I say, this is more a different type of business that I'm showing, but it's really because it's an example here. And you've got different way to show your KPI, and that's what I was trying to show. Again, that could be a percentage. We don't have it here, but that could be also a number. Again, you want to display if it's green, red, for example, if it shows something good. some things that are right on the spot. When you look at them, you know right away that this KPIs is that you have been successful without making too much research. That will be the first spot that come to the first thing you see when you look at this, for example, this type of dashboard. Hope that makes sense so far. After this, what you should do in terms of possible, it's always to try to consult with your audience and to see if you are on the right track or not. If something went wrong, it's okay. If it's possible to see with a customer, your customer, which is an audience that is going to look at this report, to see with them if you are using the right path, if some of these KPIs are completely off track or you are completely on track. I think that's very good to always validate the work you have done on this process. Let's move on to now to the next slide here. So hold on, let me come here. Okay, so now we go to the phase of modeling. Yes, so we have defined many KPIs behind. That could be different, as we said, that could be a percentage, a number, and so. Now we go one level down. As you can see, we're doing a lot of reverse engineering here. We start from the KPI and we want to go back to the measure. So maybe a KPI is just a formula. Maybe it's a percentage, maybe it's a formula. So you need, during that phase, to detail what is a KPI, how it has been built. On this, what I do specifically here, I try to detail all the different measures that define this specific KPI. I'm trying to list them all at that point here, so that I don't have any more formula or interpretation or a specific measure on matrix that is listed. After doing so, I'll do the same. I'll do through the dimension process. Again, for each of the questions that you have, you want to make sure that you can answer. You can have a common dimension, for example, date time could be maybe everywhere. Number of homelessness could be another number that is pretty present everywhere, but that could be one of the dimensions you could use. Sometime you would want to know how many people got evicted, so that could be used too. Criminal history, name if possible. All these dimensions and even more that can help you to answer, for example, through a graph or through a process or through a drill down, that can help you to answer the question that has been listed. So you want to list them all also at this level. That would be at this level. After you have done this, after you complete this phase, one of the process I personally go through is that I list all these measure on all these dimension like in a vertical, in a file for example, in an Excel file where I put them all line next to each other. Why? Because I'm going to try to define what are the different first things, the data source behind them, where do I find them, and also I want to make sure that I note if there is a specific level of granularity behind each of these measures, for example, to make sure they are aligned to each other. But also I do the same for the dimension. Where are these, the criminal history, for example, dimension? Where can I find that? Does it need to be through a formula or not? And where can I find that? So I do the data lineage for all of them. I want to make sure that all of this process, all these measures are really, my goal is trying to define them at the same granularity level. Let's say days, it's a granularity level as far as time date for all of them. I want to make sure that all these metrics that I have are defined at the same level in order to be able to have a model that is understandable and flexible enough. The next level, what I want to do is I want to do through a drill or a hierarchy process here. So I want to understand, because sometimes, as we see, at first we start from a KPI that might lead to a graph, that might lead to something else. So to answer the question, you might need to answer the question that you have. You might not need to go through a drill process, but there is question that might come that we did not that come after answering this the question that has been listed. So you would want to define a correct hierarchy path, for example, or correct drill within your process. So you already want to think about it uh, within your modeling at that part. Even if not being asked, but you know that this drill can answer a lot of questions, then that you should do it. The next thing is what matter is you know that you most likely will have some drill for the date. For example, as we see, some of the first graphs that we show in the requirement have been listed by year. Some of the other graphs go all the way by days, by months, and then by days. So it's important in order to understand the trend, you might need to go through this process of drilling here. So that's why it's important for me to also go through this phase here. Let's continue here. But before to move on, I would like to add a last comment at this level. I want to make sure that you have at the end many data sources already listed. So what you want to know is, okay, I have this data source. They are at the same granularity level. If not, I make sure that they are. Then I want to know, is there a way for me to join them, to associate them together? Is there a common denominator? As we say, date could be from data source 1 to data source 2. You can join the data through a date or through a specific key or foreign key that you can create yourself. But you want to have some common denominator to be able to do the join, as that could come maybe to answer the question or maybe for more if more question will be asked. So let's go to the next level here. Let me go here, which is visualization. So visualization is a complete ball game, complete different ball game after this, yeah. So because it's really an art actually, because there is many ways to do a representation. Some people have done even a science out of it, and that's why I'm trying to mention here with Stephen Few, which is one of the book I personally did looked at, which is Show Me the Number. So how to find a way to show correctly a specific, to answer through a graph a specific question. Not every graph might be the best to answer a specific question. As we know, for example, a pie chart might not be best if you look at a pie chart and you have many value behind it. Meaning, if you have in your pie chart, if you have many pies about the same size, 20 pie within your pie chart with the same size, then the pie chart might not be as useful. It could be maybe a column chart where you can see more distinctly the difference. So that's why you do want to make sure you use the correct graph. So as for this, you can go with your own feeling, or me personally, and that's why I always try to go through this. This is something I found years ago on the web that was very useful to me. I call that a chart suggestion. It's called a chart suggestion actually, and he helped me, for example, to do some to know which chart to use. As you see here, I have highlighted a specific process here, which is a comparison here. But you can imagine that you can use as a starting point. You might not go with this type of chart, but as a starting point, you can go through this specific chart suggestion that can lead you to maybe a good graph that could express the question. Also, what you need to think is this type of graph drillable? Can I go from here to another path behind it to answer another question and to go to pinpoint a specific element if needed? Now I go to another phase, which is after I have done everything. I have done my graph that I believe can answer the question, but they are all segmented in different aspects because every graph answers a specific question. So is there a way for me to link all these graphs together in a correct manner, in a logical manner, more than giving a strict answer for each of the questions? Maybe there is a flow that I can get out of it. That's very important. So that's why storytelling is very important, because you want to make sense. You want to make a flow in your answer when you do your answer there. So that's why for me, I characterize this as one of the critical aspects of a delivery, at least on site. You always want to have a story to tell. So because we know many times we have failed with a very complex solution, very, very genius technical solution, but a story that did not match this technical aspect, and usually it doesn't work. On in my case, during my experience at customer, it did not. It could be even rejected sometime. On the same thing, a fabulous story can work without a technical genius solution, but the other way it would not work. So, however, a fabulous story always, or almost always, need a good visual support. So it's very important the way you will define this graph or these KPIs or the answer in way where you will tell the story. As I say, it cannot be only the KPIs that defined in one of the first chart. Uh, it's very important that you think of this aspect. So the next thing is something I mentioned before, which is a flow. You want to have a flow between all the different elements and questions you answer within your solution. When you tell the story, in order to be compelling, it's really important that you connect and resonate with people. That's on the nice things with the subjects of homelessness, you do connect with everyone. Everyone have seen or felt about this, about homelessness, or most of the people on this planet did feel. So it's an easy subject for you to really connect on the sensibility on the people. You can get them hooked very quickly uh, uh, by this fact, by using this in your story. Um, it's very important also to have some fun fact and positive fact. There is different way to portray a story. You can make it fun also. You can click. You can keep the people can keep the story in mind. So again, what I'm going over here is all some different tips that has been used to tell a good story. Another way that I think when you don't know how to get to it, that I use is called peel the onion and look at things that drive the answer to your question. So go a little more down, layer by layer, go down and try to be as simple as possible at the end. That's not always very easy to be simple, but that's really important. Peeling the onion, what that means for you. Do a brainstorming all together and go down to the fact, and you might be able to know which one are the fact, which one are the most important, and which one are the fun fact too at this level. Be simple is very important in a way that you really want to remove any detail that is not characteristic to your answer. If your answer doesn't stick, doesn't doesn't is not linked to this specific detail, I would say maybe you need to get them away at least on the first view for the user. Do not overwhelm the user. Really make sure there is a flow on this. There is a clear lead there. Limit the number of visual on the same page is very important that the user doesn't get confused right away. There is not only saying a fun fact. There is also the quick fact. By a specific number, you can display in a the first view of your dashboard. For example, uh, it's a fact on written a text just under, and I'm going to show some example after. Will draw really the attention on it. Uh, that's what that will help really to tell your story also. The other thing, and I think it's very important to be very creative in your UI when you do the UI. Do not underestimate that part. I can tell you that most of the project that we do deliver, we do have a team not only of report writer, we have also a team that is specialized to make it look good, to a UI team specifically that we know that we need to use this color, not this color. We need to make fun, make sure it's really fun, make sure that this subject is more on the right, it's proportionate, but also something really attractive. So we really go over a specific team for that we rely on them. So be creative at that level when you tell the story. And I'm going to go through some example that you can find on the web, and specifically on our using SAP. I can do it. In order to do it, there is a nice way if you can make it work. Is really use some infographic surrounded by fun fact. This is a nice example, and that's what I want to go over right now. So let me show you some example here. Let me go here. So now I want to go to another aspect, to some example. Again, that's just an example that might not work and be acceptable in your context, for you at least, but it's just an example on how to help to tell a story by a nice by leveraging as much as possible infographic, and by leading from call the user, call the attention of the user, and let him drill to the specific from the specific KPI all the way to the specific detailed dimension or measure that define this KPI, for example. Let me go to it. But again, this is a little artistic, so that might not be, or that might work in some of your cases. Yeah. For example, here this is these two graphs that I really like. These two infographic and pictures that I really like because they tell story. For example, on the right side is specific for the city of Buenos Aires, and you can see that what they did here, they tried to find a fun fact, and also the fun fact, the positive fact, you know, that you can say about a county. For example, that could be the county that we are right now talking about in the study that we are doing now, you know. And you can see, you can put some fun fact. We put, as you can see here, some of the KPI are listed at this level here. And from there, you can imagine that you can drill down to explain it. That's just an example. But this can cut the attention of the user to go directly to a fact, to a specific fact here. That that's one example. I'll also put here. This is about Asian pants, Asian paintings here. For example, as another company, or finally, I choose another part that was used specifically for the NHL here. But everywhere, as you see, there is some specific KPI listed. Of course, you can go as we did here. I'm going to show you back to come back to it. You can go back to something more neutral as this specific part here. But you have the choice to be and use some of maybe some easier infographic at this level, or you can be even, you can go all the way to a lot more to a lot more specific in your description. So again, when I'm talking, what is very important about the storytelling, I would like to come back here, it's really to connect and resonate with the people here. And as I say, your subject is very easy because this is exactly what you this is exactly the homelessness is probably one of the most touching, because it touch family, it touch kids, it touch everyone. This is the whole demographic. uh, uh, so this is a very easy subject to get attention from the user. So from there, you can really, from the audience, from there you can really draw some fun facts, some quick facts that will caught the attention and touch everyone. So I really encourage you to find this quick fact and to really try to illustrate them, as I say, as I show you in the example here below. So I I hope, let's go back to the agenda here. I hope it did make sense. uh, just to rephrase a little what was important here. So really, before to start, you need to do some work and try to imagine, go from the end solution and maybe go back all the way to using reverse engineering somehow, all the way back to the dimension, matrix, and measure. That's a technique I use. Also, yeah, that's one aspect of it. And so what would be a graph which is positive, show positive or KPI, show positive KPI, and how could you go through it, and also go all the way through the modeling or through the visualization on the story. So every part matter, but remember, the storytelling is probably the most important. Anyway, I want to thank you to have listened all the way to this little presentation. I do hope it will help you. Now, if you have any question, of course, I'll be glad to answer to them. Thank you.